VeloCloud was started 3.5 years ago, so we've got a bit of an advantage in the SD-WAN, the genuine SD-WAN market, and then we started thinking about this and working on this 3.5 years ago. VeloCloud also has over 200 paying customers. These are not proof of concepts. These are not trials. These are actually paying customers. VeloCloud also has the world's largest SD-WAN win. We had it 4 weeks ago with a business with nearly 5,000 sites, 5,000 branch office locations. And recently, just in the last 2 weeks, we also won a deal with nearly 20,000 branch office locations and site locations. So VeloCloud is the only genuinely cloud-delivered SD-WAN. I'll talk to you more about what that means and why that matters a little later in comparison to the other solutions that are out there. VeloCloud targets large enterprises, and we also work with a lot of service providers out there, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 service providers, and a lot of system integrators and value-added resellers. And I'm going to tell you that that's really important because this whole paradigm is shifting. And Brett talked about it, Myron touched on it. There's a disruption that's happening here, and it's going to create a model where a lot of vendors or players who previously didn't play in this area, the wide area networking area, are suddenly going to be opportunities and areas for you to actually look for solutions from. And so it's not just going to be the Tier 1, Tier 2 telcos. It's going to be SIs and VARs who are going to be able to provide just as good or better a solution than what you can get today. VeloCloud works with 80 plus partners. We've got 100 plus employees. We've raised $49 million out of the 181 that Brett talked about. So Brett touched on this. Gartner's following this market. There's a number of other analysts that are following the market. A couple of other data points here and why SD-WAN, or the reason why people think it's hot, is that there's quite a range of enterprises that are going to be deploying this. So Brett talked about 30% of enterprises will have SD-WAN not just at a few branches, but all of their branches within 2.5 years. That's what Gartner says. 45% of enterprises plan to spend on SD-WAN in the next 2 years. The SD-WAN market is going to grow to $6 billion. IDC has come up with that number. All these folks are converging on the same concept, and these are the folks that work with you and your peers in this industry. Gartner has 10,000 customers. They have 75% of the Fortune 500 customers or businesses are their clients. So they're hearing this from other businesses, your peers in this space. But what's going on, and why is it that SD-WAN is gaining such popularity? The reason is that today's wide area networks are broken. They were fantastic for the way your business was run 5, 10, 15 years ago. Back when X.25 was around, it went to Frame Relay, went to ATM, went to MPLS. The company that I work for that Myron mentioned was Stratacom. We designed the world's first Frame Relay product. I was pretty excited about that. Evolved it into ATM and MPLS. What's the next wide area network after MPLS? What are the specs out there for it? It really doesn't exist. It's going to end up being the internet. And the reason is that a lot of your applications, not all of them, but a lot of your applications, as Brett was talking about, are shifting to the cloud. And so you're using potentially infrastructure as a service, you're using Office 365, maybe you're using Salesforce.com, maybe you're using Sugar CRM, whatever it might be, there's a lot of the applications that you as a corporate IT CIO have sanctioned for your business to use. You've written them down, there's maybe 6 of them, 12 of them, whatever it might be. But there's also a list of applications that you haven't sanctioned. There's applications that Shadow IT are deploying in your enterprise under your nose, and they're using them in different functions within the business. I remember WebEx gained huge, enormous adoption because sales folks in multiple offices could give their credit card for less than $5,000 and run WebEx out of that remote office. The same thing has happened with other cloud apps. And then you've got the rogue users, the folks like myself who use Google Docs to take notes in meetings, corporate meetings, and write things that might be confidential in those notes because it's a super easy and free tool for me to use. I'm sorry, but I don't think that my corporate IT team knows I'm doing this, at all. So that whole that's happening to all of us. And as an IT team, my belief is that we're losing control, we're losing visibility, we're losing security, and we're also losing the ability to affect performance of those applications. And the applications that you've defined that are important probably should have the highest performance. And the applications that you've decided aren't your corporate IT sanctioned apps should be lower performance. And then you've got the whole mix of my current apps that are still on premise. I got to be able to manage all that. And I got to be able to control it and drive the performance for all that. So that's one of the big reasons I would say that SD-WAN is growing in terms of interest and adoption by your peers. So the best way to connect to these apps is, that's right, over the internet. And you connect to them over the internet either through a backhauled connection to the data center. That gives me as corporate IT complete control over that, one throat to choke there. Or I run out my connections out to each of the branch office locations. I start to lose control, security, and visibility in that case. And oh, by the way, the internet is horrible for running your business quality, business class applications across. This is data that VeloCloud has collected. We do something called the Internet Quality Report, where we literally look across the entire globe at data to branch office locations, both over private connections and public connections, and have determined that during the business hours, 18 to 25% of the time, the internet is not acceptable for running your business class applications across. Show of hands for anybody who's not surprised by that. Just, yeah, no, of course not, yeah. And I get business class internet from maybe my cable provider. That's supposed to be a lot better, right? That gives me symmetrical connectivity, so I got 100 meg down, 100 meg up. But this data also includes those connections, and those connections end up not being much better in terms of the quality of service and quality of experience. And it doesn't matter whether you're over cable, DSL, Ethernet, fiber, wireless, whatever it is, you end up receiving, poor quality. And the issues around last mile, it's middle mile, it's all over the place. And I'll show you some actual data from real customers. So we talked about this concept of applications shifting to the cloud. I see a lot of heads nodding. Yeah, that's happening. Some of it's happening without your, without necessarily your approval. Other you've approved, you're sanctioned. But the other piece is just complexity. So prior to deploying VeloCloud, for example, private lines end up being 100 times the cost of broadband internet. And this is just, you look at just the US and North America. You get outside of the US, if you've got a single or multiple offices in EMEA and Asia Pacific, the costs begin to skyrocket. CapEx of $50,000 per branch. So you're talking about multiple boxes in these branch offices. That whole thing is going to change. You're going to be able to use and drive something more like a lean branch office where I can push more of my services into the cloud. I can offer security services, storage services, documentation services out into the cloud, and other networking services, firewall, for example, and reduce that CapEx. But today it's CapEx $50,000 per branch. Deployment oftentimes takes months, and it's not just getting the equipment out there, it's actually getting the provision. I was just talking to somebody earlier this evening who was talking about MPLS out at their remote locations. And the challenge that they're having is they need more bandwidth out at those remote locations. And quite frankly, it's not as easy to get additional bandwidth through MPLS out at those remote locations. And if I can, it's going to cost me quite a bit. MPLS prices are dropping 6 to 15% a year. I've talked to Telegeography about this. They're going down, but they're not going down fast enough to keep up with Moore's Law and its influence over broadband internet. I'm getting at home twice as much bandwidth as I was last year, a year and a half, at the same price. My broadband provider is willing to do that for me, and that's going to continue to happen. And to top it off, my applications are running slow. My on-premise apps, and then of course my cloud-based applications begin to run slow. And this is over my existing network. So then we add the fact that apps are shifting, or some of my apps are shifting to the cloud. I encounter the same issues with those cloud applications. They get double taxed over that link, my MPLS link. If I have all the apps running back to a centralized data center where I've got my broadband internet coming in here, you're paying for the broadband, the internet to the data center, and then you're paying for the bandwidth over your private network out to every single branch office location, just so you can have control over the visibility, the performance, and the quality of experience. So with VeloCloud's cloud-delivered SD-WAN model, There's the ability to actually leverage and use your MPLS network, plus bring in broadband internet and cellular internet, LTE, 3G, 4G, and use multiple transports as your wide area network. So now you're no longer beholden to just that MPLS link and maybe using a broadband internet link as a backup link. Now you can use both of them simultaneously. My belief is that the days of primary, secondary, tertiary links, that's gone. All the links should be your primary links whenever you decide to use them, however you decide to use them, and it should be done automatically. Your CapEx is brought down by 5x, multiple 5x. You can deploy in days. These solutions, this type of solution is plug and play. You take the device, ship it out to the remote site, and your office manager can plug it in out at that site. Now we've got partners, for example, who say, you know, especially the carriers who say, whoa, 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 Mike, don't tell anybody, don't tell our end customers that. Don't say anything about plug and play, automation, ease of use, We want a reason to be able to go out to those remote site locations, and we want to have an engineer visit the site who can go in and deploy that solution. So watch out for that, but that's going to be the case here. But the idea is that it's going to be a lot easier to deploy, and my application performance is going to increase. So the ability to get higher performance, higher quality of experience for real-time applications out to branch office locations, whether they're going across my private links and they're my private on-premise apps, or they're cloud-based applications. And this is done through per packet steering of applications. So if I can begin to actually steer applications at a very, very low level across any one of those links, I can start to avoid issues that are out there across any of those links. And top it off, if I'm measuring everything about those links, I'm measuring the throughput, the capacity, the three horsemen of network impairments. What are they? Anybody? Give me one of the, packet loss. What was the other one? Latency, jitter, ringer. So yeah, but those are the ones. They've existed, Brett, for ages, and every single network we've ever designed, frame relay, ATM, MPLS, set-tox, all those impairments always existed. The ability to steer around those is essential, and that's how you maximize the amount of bandwidth across every single link that you have there. So you layer on top of this concept of cloud, and where potentially the cloud becomes the network. Why can't your network, your wide area network, meet your applications where they live? And those applications are beginning to live in the cloud. There's no reason why that network can't extend itself out into the cloud and do it in a way that maintains visibility, control, performance, security, the ability to influence quality of experience, all those capacities. So what VeloCloud has done is develop technology that gets deployed at every single remote site. It gets deployed in the cloud, and we do a couple things. The first thing we do is all the measurement. We'll measure the impairments, throughput, capacity. Second thing we'll do is we'll steer around issues that might exist within any one of your links, regardless of the type of link that you're using. The third thing that the solution does is literally begins to remediate and repair the links. So believe it or not, I'll show you data here, and trust me, this will be a little more interesting than we've talked about even thus far, in that MPLS networks are not perfect. Let me say that again. MPLS networks are not perfect. Raise your hand if you thought your MPLS network was perfect. They're not perfect, and I'm going to show you data. We're opening up eyes for the businesses that deploy these solutions, and their ability to actually see and get visibility into how their networks are performing today. Not just the broadband internet network, but the private network. The ability to actually repair not only the broadband internet circuits, but also the private MPLS circuits is essential to a model like this. And so that's one of the ways in which we get an improved quality of experience solution. So take a look at this. This is a topology. So what you'll see here is a number of branch offices on the left-hand side. This might be 1 to tens of thousands of branch office locations. To the right, what you see in the bottom right is maybe your private data center, maybe a campus location. Maybe this is a headquarters location, or maybe all those types of location, regional hub. In the top center, you'll notice where your internet applications are being sourced over the internet, B2B internet, generic internet, cloud services, software as a service, cloud compute, cloud storage, cloud security, all those services. And what you'll notice here is that all of this is orchestrated through a single cloud orchestration model. And so what that means is that I've got to have the ability to apply all my business policy at a high level, decide business quality class voice maybe has the highest priority, video maybe second priority, email maybe a little medium, lower priority, generic internet access maybe low priority. You go through and you determine what the types of classes you want, the prioritization business policy you want for all those applications across the board. All that information gets propagated network-wide. Another thing that I believe is that this whole concept around class of service, queues, raise your hand if you know what a diff serve code point is, DFCP. Yeah, we got some nerds in here, I like that. Diff serve code points, type of service, bits, all that I think goes away. The need to have multiple classes of service. I want my video to be this class of service. I want my voice to be this class of service. I want email in this class and ERP in this class. I want to have a bursting class. I think all that is gone. I think the ability to define business policies at a high level and have that propagate down throughout your entire network and have the network decide on an instantaneous basis how that traffic should be steered, how those packets should be steered, and the amount of quality of experience of priority that they should have, and which other package should have a lower priority should be the responsibility of your network. You set the business policy at a high level, and you let the network take care of all those services and systems. The other aspect here that I think is incredibly important is in the past, I've had traditional networks that have been hub and spoke. I've got a head end. I've got multiple branch office locations, and I can control the priority of the traffic going down to each branch office location because I had complete control over the network. It was a great design for on-premise applications. What's changed, though, as I'm running these cloud applications is that I have to be able to influence quality of service from any source, wherever those applications might be deriving. And that might be from the data center, it might be from the cloud, or another branch office location. So this concept of inbound multi-source quality of service is essential, meaning that I can begin to lower the priority of Netflix. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to break this to you, but some of your employees are watching Netflix and maybe even YouTube. It's happening. You want to be able to lower the priority of some of those applications, maybe even Facebook, and raise the priority, that's a shocker, and raise the priority of your cloud CRP offer, or maybe you're using hosted voice over IP. Oh my gosh, that should be higher priority out in the cloud than anything else. So I do that out in the cloud at a VeloCloud gateway, but also I've got applications that still run on premise that are incredibly important. You know, maybe I've got my storage applications, my backup applications, ERP applications that are running on premise. Those I want to have a higher priority. Peer-to-peer from branch to branch for video, yeah, higher priority. You know, again, on the CEO gets on a video call and it's from branch to branch, you better be straight that that's got to be super high priority there. You're controlling that at the orchestration level, and you're providing this multi-source inbound quality of service so that no matter where the traffic is coming from, you're in control. You're controlling the performance of it and the quality of it, and it's the applications that matter. And the people that are running Dropbox, which is not a sanctioned application for your business, but Box is, you want to make sure that Box has a higher priority and Dropbox has a lower priority. So that's an example of that type of topology that makes that happen. So I'll tell you that there's multiple architectures out there. You know, Brett talked about the Granger leader looking at, you know, potentially getting fired for deploying a solution. Likely you're not going to get fired for the type of SD-WAN solution that you choose, but you may end up having to spend a lot of money to retool if you don't choose the right architecture. And for SD-WAN, the one most important thing I'll share with you is architecture matters. And so very quickly, there are a number of different architectures out there. There's the single function architecture. The idea here is that these are type of services like maybe a WAN optimization solution or a WAN path controller that now suddenly has realized that this whole MPLS market and the types of solutions that we provided there in terms of squeezing bandwidth, reducing redundancy, all those things is starting to shrivel up. So those vendors are looking to pivot into a new market. SD-WAN, that's a great market to get into. The challenge is that it's a single function device that's designed to operate within a traditional hub and spoke type network. Second model is a router-based model. This model is, again, a hub and spoke model that's looking at adding on SD-WAN features, which are going to lack a complete architectural solution that'll include remediation, cloud service capability, the ability to deliver inbound multi-source quality of service. You shift up a little bit, and there's this middle mile concept. So these are the types of solutions that are looking to replace MPLS core networks as an alternative. So this is a solution that maybe you'd use as an alternative to your telco's MPLS solution. And then you shift over to the right and you're looking at pure play, the pure play SD-WAN type models. And these are literally the folks, there's just a handful of them, 2 or 3, that have actually started as SD-WAN vendors and have started with a clean slate. They've had the advantage of getting started in the networking business late. It's much like, like an MPLS vendor versus Framely, back in those days. And then there's a cloud-delivered SD-WAN model that actually spans all the way from a cloud architecture down to an on-premise architecture. I will tell you that VeloCloud offers a cloud-delivered SD-WAN solution. So very quickly, 200 customers have deployed this in just about every industry you can think. Retail, hospitality, folks like Redmond, Meineke. A lot of these folks are looking at internet as a WAN, and they're looking at using this to keep up with the bandwidth demands. They're looking at zero-touch deployment. Second category, technology, service providers, system integrators. They're really focused on application performance and multi-tenant architectures and integration with their existing infrastructure, existing MPLS. The key here is that the type of architecture you choose has got to work with your current network, and it's got to work with your current routers. It's got to work with your current security devices. Oh, if you decide that you want to rip and replace, you can absolutely do that. But much like Brett talked about in terms of voice over IP and IP telephony, there's got to be a migration model there also. You've got to be able to migrate. And then construction, finance, multitude of other types of solutions, finance. The idea here is rapid deployment, centralized cloud control, management, orchestration, those things, and also troubleshooting. So a lot of these type of industries looking for ways to reduce the amount of investment that they put in IT to be able to troubleshoot and root cause problems out at remote branch office locations. So very quickly, this is a case study. This happens to be a retailer with thousands of locations. I'll point out here that this retailer was using hosted voice over IP, and in their stores, they were running into voice over IP quality issues. They were encountering drop calls, calls that were not being completed, and the calls that were completed were experiencing poor quality. It got to the point where they deployed third-party MOS score testing probes across the entire network. MOS is mean opinion score. It's an old way of measuring quality for voice over IP, and actually traditional voice also is where it started, TDM voice. So what they were told was that all you need to do is deploy more bandwidth. So that's exactly what they did. They had an MPLS network, great MPLS network, and they added broadband internet to each of the sites. And what they found is that they were experiencing the same exact issues, drop calls, poor quality, etc. They put in VeloCloud Cloud Delivered SD-WAN solution, and immediately what they discovered was instant visibility into what was happening. So suddenly it was a revelation as to what was actually happening within the network. But even more importantly, this is a retailer. Their business depends on voice. A lot of people, everybody's using the web, but ultimately for this particular business, if you need a part, you got to pick up the phone and call, because I got to get over there, I got to pick it up, and I got to take it home, I got to put it into, I got to install it. And if I don't get a hold of you, I'm going to go down my next Yellow Pages entry or Google search entry, and I'm going to call that retailer because they're going to have pretty much the same part that I'm looking for. So voice is incredibly important to them. What they found was that out of 155 calls, all the calls were completed, none were dropped, and out of all those 155 calls, 153 of them had exceptional MOS scores, and only 2 of them had acceptable MOS scores. And all the calls went through, and there were no complaints about quality issues. But very interestingly, they discovered that the MPLS network wasn't as perfect as they thought it was. So the green period here under MPLS that you see is quality levels for packet loss, delay, and jitter that are acceptable for voice and video and real-time traffic. The red is where you start to encounter critical issues with packet loss and delay and jitter. The gray period you see there is a period of time when the MPLS network literally went out. Was it the last mile? Was it premise equipment, router, back in the POP? Was it something in the middle? Not sure. But for that branch office location, it was out. The broadband cable internet link wasn't much better. It had poor quality pretty much throughout the entire duration of time there. What was happening with this solution is that every millisecond in time, traffic was steered to the most appropriate link. And so initially you'll see over the green, it was MPLS. That looked good. Then MPLS went red. Normal solutions or traditional solutions, hybrid, would switch over to the other link. They'd flash cut primary, secondary, that model. This solution took and shared packets between the links at any instant in time where it was best. At the same time, the solution provided remediation and began to repair the packet loss and repair the jitter. And then the MPLS link looked good again. Most solutions would shift the traffic back over to MPLS. That's what this solution did too. The VeloCloud solution did that. But then there was an instant when it went down. And within a few packets, the solution corrected and moved back over to the broadband internet connection, performed remediation, and again, every single call went through within that branch office location. So there's several other examples like this. I won't go through the details with these, but we'll make these slides available. This type of solution operates even in a single link model. So DevCon Construction built Levi's Stadium, which is where the Super Bowl is hosted this year. They've got over 50 locations where they've got construction sites. They have no fiber, nothing, no cable, nothing to connect up to. A lot of times they'll go wireless out there, and typically only a single link. This type of solution can literally repair even a single link out at those remote locations. Meineke Car Care, another example. They do both broadband, dual broadband, single broadband, and hybrid models with MPLS and broadband. Again, the same thing. You'll see at the top there, the resulting quality was exceptional. And it's important to know that even with dual broadband connections, you think you've got diversity, you may end up with peering issues back towards the middle mile. This is an example where location was running AT&T and XO. XO must have been using AT&T for parts of their network because there was a period of time where both of those networks went down during the same period of time. And this solution was able to mitigate that and get around that. Last point here around voice and quality. If you can solve problems for voice over IP and video and get to MOS scores in the face of 2% packet loss and go from MOS scores of 2.1 without an SD-WAN solution up to 4.1 with an SD-WAN solution, to me that's a great, a great data point. So VeloCloud is working with a lot of different partners in the ecosystem, technology ecosystem. We host our solution, the cloud-based solution, on our servers in places like Equinix and IIX. We're working closely with Zscaler and ForcePoint, Dell and HP, and Cisco and VMware. So to close, this type of model can get you to 100 times faster installs. Again, zero-touch automation. You can really drive down your costs, 3x times less money spent, both in OpEx and CapEx. And then, of course, the speeds increase because you're really carrying and following Moore's Law in terms of broadband internet speeds, but being able to transform ordinary broadband into exceptional carrier enterprise class wide area networking connections and networks.